What's up, everybody? How's it going? Marcos Villegas, Fight Up TV, being joined with Abel Sanchez, where we're going to talk a few things that are happening in the world of boxing. And boy, Abel, there's a lot going on, man. Wow, crazy last few days. But let's go ahead and go in our little time machine, go back to Saturday night. Gervonta Davis against Lamont Roach. Surprised everyone, honestly, by the result. I know there was a lot of people that were saying, hey, this is going to be a good fight. Lamont's going to be a lot more competitive, but I feel for the casual fan and for a lot of fans, because they didn't know much about Lamont, they weren't expecting the type of fight that happened that last Saturday at the Barclays. A lot of things to unpack from that fight, and especially what happened with the knee and other things. But Abel, from your trainer eye, I don't know, what'd you think overall of everything that happened that night?
I thought Lamont fought a great fight. I thought Lamont surprised a lot of people. I think he surprised Gervonta's corner. Gervonta just didn't get started soon enough. I think that he's got a lot of skill. He's one of my favorite fighters, but for some reason he tends to scope things out just a little too long this time anyway, because he just wasn't able to close like he usually does.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Isn't that kind of like the part of like the seeing, like getting the look of your opponent? Like, I don't know. That's usually like the Tank way of fighting, isn't it? Like he takes a little while and then he closes the show and puts together punches to get them out of there.
Correct, but Lamont in his corner did the adjustments necessary. I'm sure from watching a lot of video on Gervonta, what he's going to do in the later part of the fight, and they were able to nullify Gervonta's vaunted, say, second part of the fight game plan.
So, Abel, as a trainer, like why was Roach able to have so much success against Lamont? Like, what were like the little things there that like you with your eye, like were able to notice?
I think that the pressure that he applied on him, I think Gervonta just didn't get a chance to get his things off because it was constantly the presence of Lamont made it difficult for him to get started with his. He had it in mind what he wanted to do. He just couldn't pull the trigger on not necessarily the punches, but just the move that he needed to make to be effective with the shots.
No, yeah, that's true. Like we've seen, it's usually Tank that's pressuring the guys, and the guys are really, really hesitant, weary because of the power of Tank. Like I'm just trying to think, like, has there been any other opponent that's pressured Tank that way? I would say like Pitbull Cruz had success, but Pitbull Cruz was also a shorter fighter. I remember hearing from Tank after the fight that like, hey, when you fight an opponent that's so much shorter than you, it throws things off. It's trickier to hit them. Lamont was shorter, not that much. They were the same size, but yeah, it was. I don't know. I've heard that they were very familiar with each other, that they sparred a lot. And I would imagine, having that knowledge in the back of Lamont's head helped him out a lot with being comfortable being on the inside with Tank so much.
I think that was the key for Lamont. He didn't allow the extension of Gervonta. Gervonta has a habit of kind of pulling back and throwing the shots from a little crouch, but he throws long shots. And Lamont pressured him enough to be in the middle where Gervonta couldn't land and couldn't do what he wasn't comfortable doing. And he wasn't willing to take a chance, a bigger chance. I think Lamont kept him from taking a chance. Kudos to Lamont for not only remembering but watching video and figuring out a game plan.
Yeah, well, it would only work if he had the chin. He has the chin to be able to go and do that. If he couldn't take those punches, I think we would have seen a completely different fight.
Oh, absolutely. But their experience in the gym together, as you mentioned, I didn't know that fact, but their experience in the gym together, he knew what was coming at him. It wasn't going to be a surprise. Even though they're using big gloves, when you can punch, you can feel the shots. So I'm sure that experience helped him out mentally.
No, yeah, you could tell that he was just a lot more comfortable in there in those positions. I believe it was the 9th round, Abel, that the fans are calling it knee gate, but that whole incident with referee Steve Willis where Gervonta took a timeout, he went to the corner to wipe his eye, he took a knee. According to what I read, if you take a knee, regardless if there's a punch or not, you can't take a timeout. Like that's a knockdown. It should be counted. I think the ref started the count, but I just think too, like you as a trainer, I would imagine if you were like the opposite corner, you would have been livid. Like, let me know like what you saw there.
Well, as a coach, yeah, you're gonna you're gonna be mad. You're gonna be, but you got to know the rules. The rules that he didn't get hit with a punch. He didn't turn his back like he wanted to quit. He it's just like when you get a thumb in the eye. It's
Well,
a foul.
he did turn his eye. He did turn his
Yeah,
back. He
yeah,
ran
but
to
he
the
didn't turn
corner.
his back like he was going to quit. Like you've seen
Yeah.
some guys turn him. He obviously mentioned that he had something in his eye, and it wasn't from a punch. It wasn't. It was time in between the shots. I think that by the time he wanted that, or he took a knee. But I think it in the rules it states that you're allowed to do that. If you go back and you read some of the rules, I know a lot of people are complaining about it, but I think it was upheld in New York that it was okay for him to do that. I think part of the rules state that it was okay. As a
Uh,
coach on the other side, I would have bitched.
yeah.
Of course.
Of course, right? Of
I
course.
would have thrown a fit, man.
Well, the big thing is if it should have been counted as a knockdown. I don't know. Like,
Well, New York, I think, wasn't it already said that New York,
no, not yet. They're still
not
they
yet?
haven't
Or,
they
or
haven't
haven't?
released a statement yet. They're still going. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. Just from covering the fight, like covering this sport. Like I haven't seen a situation like that where, like usually, even if there's a lull in action, a fighter decides to take a knee. Like that's a count. Like 1, 2. Like so. Yeah, it's like if you were to ask me, Abel, I think that should have been counted as a knockdown. Honestly,
I don't.
you don't.
No.
You playing devil's advocate or like why?
No, I like Gervonta,
Ah,
though.
no, no, no. Okay, take that aside, Abel. Take that
No,
aside.
taking that aside, I don't think. I think I've read enough in several sites and several rule books where I think that's allowed. But then again, the New York Commission will determine that. And either way, it's going to be fair for me. Either way, I think that if that's the rule, then okay, Lamont deserves that point and deserves the win. But if the rule states that he can't do that, then I don't think it's a conspiracy. I don't think it's anything that anybody should be arguing about. It's done. It's done.
Yeah, but even running to the corner like during a fight, like that's another thing. Like your corner people can't go into the ring. That's you can get
They didn't.
disqualified.
Okay, but they didn't go onto the ring. They went on the apron.
That's I don't. Is that allowed? I don't think that's allowed, right, Abel?
Uh, Inside the ring, you could make a case for that. Who was it that got disqualified for that? Big fights. Corner came into the ring, got disqualified. On the apron, it's a referee's call. It's the commissioner should be holding the guy down or making sure that he stays down, or the inspector in the corner, making sure that they're not climbing onto the apron. But on the apron, I don't think it should be a disqualification.
No,
You get
even
heated, man. You get heated in the corner. Coaches
no,
get
no. I
heated.
know. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
As long as they don't step into the ring, I think it's okay.
Yeah, but then that brings the bigger question about like what the heck was the commission doing? Like one, you're right. There is usually an inspector and I always found it kind of funny, like seeing corners. Like it's a fight. You guys get like excited. You guys get into it, and you got these inspectors telling you to chill out, to calm down. And it's like, dude, like your fighter's going in there life and death with someone, and you have this inspector telling you like, hey, relax, hey, stop yelling, hey, stop doing this, that.
Yeah.
I always found it like, I don't know, ridiculous, honestly. But not only that, okay, the inspector, there was an inspector there that stopped that. But two, like there's a replay in New York, like that's a rule. And like the replay for some reason or another didn't work or they didn't call it. And this has happened to us before. Like I remember I worked a show with Fox where there was a replay rule in Vegas that they just instituted, but they couldn't get for some reason or another, they couldn't get their monitors working. So we went to the commission, their ringside, and told them, hey, the truck has a replay. Come to the monitor. And they went and they saw the replay. They went and put the little red light in Nevada, and then they played the replay. And yeah, they overturned, I believe it was a knockdown that they counted as not a knockdown.
Well, I think that different commissions have their own view on things and have their own. They're not going to be dictated to. New York is a commission has been around for a long time. They have their rules, and I don't think that a TV truck or an announcer should dictate what's going to happen in a particular fight or how it should be handled. I think the commission has to make that decision and not be pressured into anything, because it could be, so let's say, devil's advocate. It could be something that goes completely awry because it's being pushed by a narrative, and something gets changed, something gets a different opinion gets made, and we later find out that it shouldn't have been because of the pressure of outside influence or outside people that don't really belong inserting themselves in it.
Hmm. Well, yeah, but if
If,
you're
if the
offering a
corner did it, if the
yeah,
corner did it, that's a different story. Now
yeah,
you're talking about okay, the announcers. What if the promoter goes over and starts messing with the commission? No, it could get into a way that the commission's is influenced and the decision. It shouldn't be that. There should be nobody that influences the. That happened to me in France in a fight with Soro and one of the Argentinian boys. I forget his name now, but. When the fight was over, there was an older gentleman that was the supervisor and could not get the scores together. And the Argentinian promoter, I forget his name now, was over there like screaming at the supervisor, screaming at everybody there at the table. And we end up losing a majority decision or getting a draw or something like that because according to the scores before they were tallied, we were ahead, and then after all the commotion, we were behind. So I don't think that should be allowed. I think that the inspector, the supervisors, the commission, all that should be isolated from anybody's influence.
yeah, I agree with that. But if there's a tool, if like the production is separate from the promoter, you know, like they're there producing the fight, they have multiple angles. Like if they have that, why not? Hey, our monitor's not working. Like let's see this other monitor that has all these multiple like replay angles. It's like the same thing in soccer, like before they instituted the VAR, you know, where the FIFA refs like would blow penalty kick calls, and you had the TV stations replaying, showing like that's not a penalty, and like because the lines refs are so far and the main ref on the field on the pitch was at a certain angle, they couldn't see if a certain player was fouled or not. But like the TV trucks were showing like the replay, and they're like, look, why aren't they using like this tool available to them? You know,
When the commission decides that that is part of their
but they have
rulemaking
instant
process,
replay though. They
uh,
have instant replay.
in New York, that's
Yeah,
allowed.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
well
That's a
then,
rule.
you know, then I don't know why they didn't go to it. But
So they said, Abel, that they had technical difficulties.
well, in that particular instance, technical difficulties is going to have to override anybody's opinion. No, I
No, but
mean it's what they saw. It's what they saw, and what the referees saw, and what they. I still think it's not going to be overturned because I think the rules allow that. But we'll see next couple of days.
it was a big kerfunkel, honestly. Like a lot of balls dropped. Like replay should have been working. Like that's the whole reason why like that commission that's part of their job, honestly. The ref starting the count and then he stops it. That's I don't know. To me, that's kind of odd.
No, I think the referee realized that it was allowed.
Yeah.
Steve Willis is a good referee.
No, he is a good referee. But sometimes even the best referees have off days too. That's in any sport.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Very true. But now, why is it the commission's responsibility to handle the truck? It's not.
No, it's not. I'm
You
saying
said, but that's what you said right now. You said
no.
it's their responsibility.
If it's available, why wouldn't they? Like it's easy to get that. It's easy. Like there's monitors there that are being fed the feed by the production truck. So
Who
like if they're
determined
yeah,
who determined technical difficulties? The commission or the truck?
no, the commission.
Okay, well then they had the reasons, I'm sure. I mean, we don't know all those reasons. We weren't there. No, we weren't there in the middle of it, I should say.
Mm. Yeah, but it's still like
I
if
would have
you're like
bitched them.
yeah, yeah, more than
That's a
that,
code.
more
Yeah,
than
doesn't
that.
mean that I'm right. Doesn't mean that I'm right, but I'm gonna try to pitch a fit.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. You're saying that that's part of the rules, but like, Abel, like you've worked so many fights. If you see a fighter take a knee, like that's a knockdown,
Yeah,
regardless.
I don't think we've ever seen that situation ever
Mm.
before. So maybe it's a precedent. Maybe it's going to set a standard rule throughout. Who knows? But that's the first time we've ever seen that. We've seen guys turn their back and the fight gets stopped, but we've never seen the reaction from a referee and from a commissioner to be that. So maybe that'll set a new rule, not only in New York but worldwide.
Let me ask you this then: should it have been counted as a knockdown? Like, if you had
No,
a chance to change the rules,
no,
or no?
no. I think
Why?
that if your shoes untied, if you notice your shoes untied and you turn around and you walk and you want to get your shoe tied, that shouldn't be a disqualification. Your shoes untied, or your trunks are falling, or you notice that your cup is shifted and you're going to get it low and you're going to get hurt. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you could do that without taking a shot. But you're the only one in there. You're the one that's feeling that. Like I said, if you look down and your shoes untied, what are you going to keep fighting and trip on it and get hit? Doesn't make any sense.
That's interesting that you just mentioned that last thing because Tank said that. Tank said, "Hey, I don't want to get hit with something with my eyes closed, with something blinded. Like I had to get that out of my eye." So that's interesting that you bring that up because that's a sentiment that Tank shared at the post fight when they asked him. He's like, "Hey, like I don't want to get hit with the shot with my eyes closed because I have something in my eye."
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe he stops using that solution, whatever it was. Did you use it?
No. I put a lot of product in my hair, but never had that problem. But never been in a 12-round championship fight where someone's coming to knock my head off either. When the scorecards were read, Abel, 114, I believe, 115, 113 were the two other scores. Did you think that Lamont had won, or did you think like, oh, this fight is close, it could go either way?
I thought it could go either way. I thought it was close. I don't think, like I said, that Tank closed like he usually does. But then again, Lamont had a lot to do with that. Maybe he started a little late. Maybe it was too safety first at the beginning, his usual style. But you know what? The other thing that I noticed too, Lamont, for some reason, even though they're the same height, just looked bigger to me.
Lamont look bigger to you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just looked just more of a full 35 pounder and not a in Gervonta look a 130 pounder. I don't know why the comparison. I just didn't notice. I just didn't think they looked the same size.
Yeah, because Lamont is the 130 champion.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So rematch, I would think, is on the minds of fans everywhere. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I feel they should run it back. I feel like if they do a rematch, it's a lot bigger business. There's a lot more intrigue now, and there's a lot of storylines there. Maybe it shouldn't happen in New York. Maybe it should happen somewhere else, just given what happened with the whole commission and the replay and what we just talked about. But in a rematch, Abel, I don't know, could we potentially see the same fight? Is this a case where like Lamont may just know how to fight Tank?
It could be that, or it could be just the opposite. Lamont had a great night, and the other guy had a bad night. But another point that I think I need to bring up is why was Barry in the center and not his normal coach in the center in the ring? That was
Yeah.
interesting.
There had been a lot of talk about Calvin Ford not if he was going to be training Tank for this camp. If he wasn't, people did ask Tank what was going on with that, and he said, "Hey, Calvin's pops, like Calvin's like my pops. He'll always be in the corner." I think in an interview that Calvin did during the week, I believe he did like a group interview with the people that we had over there. They asked him like, "Hey, what's going on?" And Calvin had mentioned that he had just gotten married and equated to like he wanted personal time and that he was going to take a little step back to allow that personal time to have like a normal life. And that's where Barry took up the responsibilities of training Tank full time, even though I believe Calvin was still involved.
Yeah, I can see that, but I think to me, for many, many, many years, Calvin has been the voice in Gervonta's ear. So whether he was training him or not, I think that the guy that he's most familiar with you, one camp doesn't make you familiar with a fighter. The guy that's most familiar with you should have been the guy, in my opinion anyway, should have been the guy in the front directing traffic. Um, uh, 8 weeks or 9 weeks, whatever it was in camp, is not going to change the fact of this guy's known Gervonta for his whole life and knows what he does and can do and can motivate him in a way that maybe somebody else can't.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, Barry Hunter's a great coach.
Mm.
They're all very, very good coaches. They've all had stellar careers, but I think that the voice that you hear in your head for so many years should be the voice that you're hearing in the front.
Well, he was still in the corner. But yeah, is Barry was the lead, but no, Calvin was still there in the corner.
No, he was there, but he wasn't the main guy giving instructions.
Mhm.
He was filling in. And again, when somebody gives you one, two, three, and the other guy says four, five, six, it's a little difficult to decide what it is that you want to do in there. What whose voice do I have in my ear?
Yeah, I always wonder that, like how much info like fighters can retain when there's like multiple people telling them instructions.
It's very difficult, and it's not only in this instance like this. There's been times where fighters changed several coaches in their career. Take for instance Oscar De La Hoya. He changed five or six different coaches. When the going gets tough in there, whose voice are you listening to in your mind? Not in the corner, but in your mind, whose voice is the stronger voice that's giving you the instructions? So it's kind of, in my opinion, anyway. That I think that's kind of a you're befuddled in there. You don't. Who do you listen to? Because in your mind, you're listening to somebody. And in this particular case, like I said, what if Barry's saying one, two, three, and Calvin is saying two, three, four? You know, which one is it? So anyway, that's my 2 cents in that. But
What if fighters told you that they're listening to?
they're listening to what, just like there's a voice in the crowd that say it's a father that's had him since he was a kid. Sometimes they hear that voice because that's a voice they've heard for a long time. But it's in any sport, I think, that it's that voice of reason that you believe is of reason. And obviously, he was with Calvin for such a long time that Calvin is the voice that he's always heard.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I like in the post fight, they were both there, Barry and Calvin. And Barry said, "Hey, I've known Tank for a long time, also. Like yeah, like Calvin was the designated the chief for this amount of time, but I've known him for a very very long time too. I don't know. You would think like having both of them would be like even more helpful, right?
Not necessarily. Go back and look at some of Tank's previous fights where Calvin was in the center and the front. Was his voice as directive and commanding and do this and do this and do that as Barry's was? Barry was very forthright and very strict in the things he was saying. Is that the way Calvin talks to Gervonta? So was he listening when all those things were being said to him, or was it going in one ear, not the other, because that's not the voice that he's always heard?
Mm.
You know, I haven't really paid attention, or haven't. I don't remember some of the previous fights. Like I said, when Calvin was in the corner, I believe Calvin is more of a. For instance, Andre Ward's coach up in San Francisco. He's very quiet.
Virgil Hunter.
He's very quiet. He's very. So if somebody else got in a corner with Andre and was talking very direct and very hard, maybe those words weren't getting in. Weren't getting in. I know he's used to listening to Virgil, and um, that's why I think that the voice that you hear in your head is important.
Mm. Yeah, as long as it's not like voices that you're hearing in your head after the fact. That's a bad
We're
thing.
taking too many shots.
That's not a good
I've
thing.
heard those.
So what happens? Do you want to see a rematch, Abel, or do you think they should go their separate ways?
I think they should. Shakur should get into the mix. I think
Shakur
that
should get
we
in the
have.
mix.
Yeah, I think that we have a mixture right now, like we had back in the '80s. The four or five. I want to say the five kings, because I think Benita should be in there too. But when they had the five kings, I think there should be kind of that mixture going again, so that we have some rivalries. Man, they played this one already. Let's play another one, and then they can come back and revisit it. At least that's my opinion, anyway.
Okay, so Shakur was there at the fight. Uh, our cameras caught up with him. He's confident that he beats Gervonta in a fight. Give me your take, Abel. How do they match up? We saw Shakur fight in Saudi Arabia against Josh Padley, an opponent that had like crazy story. 4 days notice, was installing solar panels that Monday,
That's
Tuesday.
crazy. Good
Gets
for
the
him.
call, yeah, right? Gets the call Tuesday night. They offer him the fight. They give him a huge bag. The next morning, he's on his way to Riyadh. Goes in and he goes 9 rounds with Shakur Stevenson. Gets stopped, but then gets offered a matchroom contract that Monday where he can be a full-time fighter. But given how both performed, who we liking? Who wins in this Shakur Gervonta ongoing rivalry?
Well, obviously, Shakur against Padley was a little bit different than the Shakur against Lamont or Gervonta. I think that it could have been a letdown for Shakur, but Badly fought a good fight. I still like Gervonta over both guys in the next time. And I think Lamont kind of positioned himself in kind of in a tie for me with Shakur. Shakur has to be a little more forceful, I think, to deal with these guys. I don't think that his style can stay the way that it is now, and or his approach. I'm sorry, not his style. His approach to the fight cannot stay the way that it is now and be able to deal with a Lamont or with Gervonta. Very skilled though. Oh my gosh,
So
very skilled.
like, okay, so you're saying like his style can't withstand like that pressure over 12 rounds? Is that like what?
No, he's just gonna have to win rounds.
Yeah,
He just doesn't do enough to win rounds decisively. And against these guys are gonna do the things necessary to win the rounds.
unless
Not that he's gonna get knocked out or anything like that, but just not busy enough at times and too perfect.
well, the thing with Shakur and with the thing with all great defensive fighters is they usually when you look at the numbers, half your output. And it's like if you can't hit the guy, like how can you win rounds if you can't hit the guy and the other guy's hitting you more, you know?
Yeah, I don't think he's hitting you more. I think that if you throw more punches, it's gonna be close. If the punch output is gonna be close, the landed output is gonna be close. I think the guy applying the pressure and the guy making the fight should be getting the rounds.
Not if he's not effective though. If he's coming
Or
forward and missing,
if he's landing the
landing.
shots,
Yeah.
if he's landing the shots. Of course, he's and the pressure. He should be winning rounds. That's why Purnell's such a beautiful fighter. Sometimes had issues on points on the points because he looked great doing it, but he just wasn't doing enough to warrant taking some rounds, some close rounds. Same thing with Rigondeaux. Same thing with Lara. I think that the fans and most of the judges come to see a fight, come to see somebody apply pressure. That's what Pitbull is so popular right now, and Ryan Garcia is popular right now. I think because they are effective with what they're trying to do, not necessarily always effect landing and stuff, but they're effective in doing the kind of pressure that influences scores.
Let me ask you about Rayo. Actually, I'm glad you had brought that up. Pitbull. It triggered. You know. Oh yeah. What do you think about Rayo and Russell? Like I was not expecting that fight to turn out the way it did.
I did,
You did.
yes.
Yeah. I thought it was gonna be competitive.
No, Rayo. I think matchmakers are very important in this sport because matchmakers can make or break a career. Rayo has really never fought anybody like Russell, okay, or Puello, or some of these guys that are not only movers but sharp shots and repositioning. Rayo's used to, unfortunately for us, our style, our Mexican style is we come forward and we throw punches, and when you don't have that kind of work regularly in the gym or you fought that in the past, it may surprise you sometimes. And Russell fought a good fight, man. He did his brother in there.
Yeah, I don't know because okay, Russell's first, not first, but Russell's last fight was against Puello. Puello won that fight. I remember watching that fight live. Puello just fought just great, counterpunched well, was sharp, got the win. I think maybe that they were probably looking at that fight and thinking like, I can do that. Like, there's no problem for me. I can handle this guy.
Yeah, Rayo's not Puello. Rayo has had some not enough, and I think that's the problem today in a lot of gyms. We have fighters that have 6, 7, 8 fights, and now we think they're world champions, and they don't have the experience to deal with somebody. Remember, Russell came up with his brothers and with that kind of boxing, that kind of environment, that kind of speed, that kind of movement, that kind of counterpunching, that kind of styles in their gyms. And Ryo just didn't have enough experience, I think, on that part of it to be able to deal with something like that. So if he thought he could do Puello, it would have been. I would have never thought that. He just has never shown me that. And against Pitbull, Pitbull is kind of predictable in what he does, so it was easier for Ryo. But I kind of felt that Russell was going to have an easy time with him.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I thought it was going to be competitive, and I was basing it off of how Russell looked against Puello and how Rayo looked against Pitbull, and I thought, hey, this is going to be a good fight. Turned out, opposite of what I was expecting, but you would think,
No, Rayo
yeah,
tried. Rayo tried. He tried. I mean, he gave us his all, but he was just outgunned that particular night. Now we need to go back. He needs to go back in the gym, and Robert needs to start working on some things that he saw, and he'll be a better fighter for it. But that experience, I think, is going to make him a better fighter.
yeah, Russell wins, Puello wins. You would think that they should do a rematch, but in that Puello versus Sandor Martin fight, like being honest, like I had friends reach out to me and tell me like, hey, they're always asking me for like their parlays, like, hey, how long is this gonna go? How many fights? How do you look? And I told them like, hey, that Puello versus Sandor Martin fight is not gonna be a nice fight to watch, just given because of Sandor Martin's style. And then like I watched the first round, I watched the second round, and I was like, what the heck? Like, this is a good fight. Like, Sandor Martin doesn't fight like this normally. Like, he's like bringing it to like Puello. And then like, as we keep getting in and in and in, I'm like, hey, I think Sandor Martin's winning this fight. 12 rounds comes, they finish the fight, and Puello gets the decision. It was a close competitive fight. I thought Martin edged it out, but how'd you see it, Abel?
It could have been a draw for me, but
Could have been a
Puello,
drop.
Puello, I think did just a little bit better for me. Just more, it just fought a better fight for me. Sandor Martin got that one good win or one good showing, and I think that we put him up there. He's not really, I don't think, on that
Well,
level.
two. He beat Mikey and then Teo, that Teo fight.
Right. The tail fight,
Yeah.
right. I don't think he's on that level with those 40 pounders, but he's a he's a good gatekeeper. I think that's what they used to call him, right? A guy that's always going to give you a hard time and going to make your champion work for his defense. But Puello, I think, is learning. Puello's getting better, in my opinion. Puello's going to be somebody to deal with at that 140.
I think eventually Sandor Martin will win a world title. I think he can compete with those guys. Like, he more than can compete. A lot of people thought he won against Puello. A lot of people had him winning against Teo. I think, yeah, it's unfortunate he didn't get the win. You're saying that you felt that Puello won, but it's maybe a step back and make two steps forward. Like I think eventually, if he keeps fighting at this level, he will get a world title.
Yeah, well, we've had 4 or 5 in the past, guys that were right there, and just never, you know,
Never
um,
could cross the line.
just
Yeah.
never, yeah, just could never for some reason just not be a world champion. But competitive, they're always in one or two in their position, one or two. They're always going to have close fights. They're always going to have fights that somebody thinks that maybe they won, but for some reason they don't make the grade quite when it comes to time to decisions.
Turning the page now, Abel. 3 fights got announced in New York. Actually, 4 with the press conference happening today. But those 3 fights: Ryan versus Rolly, Teofimo Lopez versus Arnold Barboza, and Devin Haney versus Jose Ramirez, who changed his. He has a nickname now. I didn't know Jose Ramirez had a nickname. Do you know, Abel? He
No,
goes by El Jaguar, which I had no
never heard that
idea.
before.
I've never heard of it either, but they announced him as El Jaguar. But let's start from the top and work our way down. Ryan versus Rolly. The press conference, a little underwhelming. I thought they were both going to talk a lot of smack at each other. They're both very professional. Maybe they told him, hey, be professional. Like, this is going to be seen by a lot of people. But it's a good fight. It's a good fight. A lot of bad blood. Both can crack. You would think on paper Ryan is the more complete fighter, right, Abel?
Ryan is the bigger, stronger, faster, bigger puncher. Ryan looks huge compared to Rolly. And I think that size and the power is going to be the difference. I think that Rolly is not really developed from, say, four or 5 fights ago. He's still the same guy. I don't know who he's working with now, but
Salas.
Always working with his mind. Okay. Well, I
I
just
think
think,
they have one or two fights under the belt.
yeah, he's a stubborn kid from what I've seen and heard. He's a stubborn young man. How much can Salas influence him
Well,
into?
Ryan is not.
No, yeah, but Ryan's a little more, I think, more skilled.
Yeah,
And he's got the power, man. He can crack.
yeah.
Raleigh doesn't come close to cracking like Ryan. And Ryan thinks got the size, so he's gonna. I think it'll be 6, 7 rounds for Ryan.
Hmm. Hmm. So Ryan goes back with Eddie Reynoso now, and he did well with Eddie. I thought he was doing well with Derek too. I don't know why the change happened. I think it's might be better to be in a gym with someone like a Canelo in there, someone like a Munguia now in there working. I feel like fighters do feed off of that, and that level kind of rubs off on them to train even harder because they're seeing these guys train so hard. But yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like okay. The one thing is we know Rolly can crack. Okay, and he's real awkward with the styles. And Rolly's really familiar with Ryan Abel. Like they have they know each other for so long because of the amateurs. And I don't know. I just feel like when you know your opponent like that, you have a better time predicting what they're going to throw because you've been seeing those punches on and on and on. Kind of similar to like Ryan and Devin, where Ryan was saying like, "Yo, I fought this guy as a kid. He always gets hit by my hook. Like I know how to like fight this guy."
Well, what you said at the beginning of that is so true. Unfortunately for Oli, he's the big dog in the gym. There's nobody that you can say he's looking up to or he's trying to emulate or he's trying to not necessarily copy because he really can't copy. But Ryan has the advantage of not he's trying to impress anybody, but he doesn't want to be doing less than anybody else. He doesn't work. He doesn't want to work less than anybody else. And when you're in a gym with stars like that, especially at Canelo, like when I had Golovkin, I was lucky to have Golovkin because all the other guys worked as hard as he did. So we were fortunate to have a Canelo in the gym. Everybody underneath him is gonna not want to be unimpressive to Canelo, whether they're working with him or not. They're in the same gym. I think that Ryan will benefit from that. Ryan will work harder, will improve. And if the only problem I see in this situation right now is that Eddie will have so many fighters on that card that will he be running back and forth? That's going to be an issue for him, I believe. I've had that
Wow.
situation happen before.
I did not realize that, Abel, because Ryan fights in New York May 2nd, and Canelo fights May 3rd in Saudi Arabia. And like,
Right.
where do you think Eddie's gonna go? He's gonna go with Canelo.
Of course. Of course.
Ah, wow, wow. I just realized that now.
But I'm sure the work they do in the gym will be sufficient enough for Ryan to, like I said, 6 or 7 rounds for me is what I see Ryan doing.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you ever talked to fighters and asked them like, "Hey, how do you feel when like I don't work your corner and I'm like too busy?" Like,
Oh, absolutely. But if they're in a team environment, I know it's not a team that we're when we step in the rope and inside the ring, but when you're in a team environment and you have a leader, which Canelo is right now for their gym, and you have a leader, you have to understand the pecking order. You have to understand that there's going to be moments, unfortunately, in this business, there's going to be moments where the head coach is not going to be able to be there. But as long as you've done everything in the gym with the head coach and you have confidence in what you did, you root for your teammate because it's success for one is success for all.
yeah, if you have a chief second that the fighter trusts as well, I think for one fight you'd let it slide, but if it's a continuing thing, I think the fighter would start being like, "Yo, what the heck?"
Uh, what would you rather have? Be greedy and be pretentious and be or have the success of the group that you're working with. I mean, you have to realize that get to that point, and maybe you'll be the one that they're always going with. Get to that point. Canelo's earned that.
Yeah, but as an
It's difficult.
individual, like
Don't get me
you'd
wrong.
want
It's
your trainer
difficult.
there on fight night.
Yeah, yeah. Don't get me wrong. It's difficult for the coach to do this. Okay, it's very difficult. But sometimes like Derek had hung all those guys, 4 or 5 guys that were stars. It's very difficult because you don't want to do that. You don't want to leave a guy out, but sometimes it happens, man. Sometimes when you're successful, as Eddie is right now, and Derek was at the time, you have those moments. You have those situations where it's going to happen.
Going down the card, Abel, Devin Haney, Jose Ramirez. Haney making his comeback, this first fight since that Ryan Garcia loss. A lot of questions surrounding Devin. Is he the same fighter? Can he still take a punch? What's happening? What do you make of the fight with Jose? I think it's a good fight for him to see where he's at.
It's a great fight. It's a great fight. But Jose is going to show us that Devin is not where he thinks he is. I think
You favor Jose?
No. Devin's going to beat Jose.
Oh, okay.
But he's just going to give him the kind of fight that Devin doesn't expect. I don't think that the fight with Ryan is going to be any effect on him. I think that he may not be able to take the best shot, but Ryan hits hard. But I think he'll work a little more on his reaching and his defense. But I think Jose will give him a hard time. I think Jose will give him the kind of fight that he gave Barboza, and just show Devin, I guess, that he's not what he thinks he is. He may be one day, but not at this point. He's not on the Gervonta, Shakur, Lamont level. But he may be at one point.
You favor Devin in the fight against Jose. This is a good fight because Jose is not a huge puncher, but he does have a work rate. He puts punches together. Very, very high work rate with him. Is it a scenario at all that we could see Jose get the upset in this fight, given that Devin doesn't throw a lot of punches?
I think that's going to be up to Robert. I think if Robert can and watching this last fight where Rayo and Russell fought, I think that Robert will think a little bit about how he needs to attack Haney with Ramirez. Ramirez is a better fighter, obviously, than Rayo, more experienced, I should say. But I think that Robert will, if he figures that out and if he puts up a good game plan that Ramirez can follow, then I think you may have that. But I still think Devin wins the decision, a close decision, but he wins the decision.
And the opener fight, which is now the fight that I'm looking most forward to because of all the trash talk between them, Teofimo Lopez and Arnold Barboza. Barbosa coming off of that win against Jack Catterall in Manchester, England, a few weeks back. Teofimo Lopez, first time we've seen him in the ring, and man, I don't know how long. Honestly, I'd have to look it up. But how do we see? Barbosa is a guy that he's just very well-rounded overall. Like, he's very good at he's not a master of one thing, but very good at everything.
Yeah, in fact, he should be coming here to Big Bear within the next week. Start training. Yeah, he's been training him. No, his father does, but he trains here at the gym. Yeah, he trains in Big Bear. But Barbosa's very good at everything. Not a big puncher, so I wouldn't say he's 100% as a puncher, but he's good, very good at everything. He's got great legs, great instincts. And Teofimo's inactivity may prove to be the reason why Barbosa wins the decision.
Yeah, he has been active. Let me see what Teo's last fight was. I don't want to misquote. The last fight was Steve Claggett. Yeah, that's right, in Miami. And then before that was Jermaine Ortiz in February of last year. So he had 2 fights last. Let me just BoxRec always with this sign-in paywall.
They've changed that so much. I don't know.
It's annoying. All right, so Teofimo Lopez had 2 fights in 2024. So he hasn't been super inactive, but his last fight was in June 29th. This fight is in May, so almost a year out of the ring for Teofimo Lopez.
Yeah, well, Barbosa fighting just not too long ago and then going right back in. I think that helps him. I think that the work in the gym is not going to be as difficult because now it's sharpening up and staying sharp and the weight's right. So all those things are a factor in preparing for a fight. When you're in activity, your weight and your inactivity, not that you forget, but you slow down. The things have to be remembered. The instincts have to be brought back. All those things make a difference. When Mike Tyson was fighting every 5 to 6 weeks, he was unbeatable. He was unbeatable. His combinations came out like easy. And then when he started fighting once a year, it wasn't the same guy. So I think that helps Barboza being coming right back into a fight.
So I got two questions over this fight. Like, one is, we saw clips of Teofimo training with Eddie Reynoso, and we thought that they were going to be part of the camp now also. But now there's always been a rivalry between Teo and Ryan. Like, if just covering it, I know that there's always been, they're like cool with each other, but there's been like competitive tension between them, because I feel like they both have always known at some point they are going to fight. And I think that is the plan that Turkey put out, that if Ryan wins his fight and Devin wins his fight, they're going to have a rematch. And the winner of that fight is going to fight Teofimo, if Teofimo, granted, wins all these fights. So I'm just kind of thinking, like, how's that going to work? You're training two guys that are potentially going to fight each other like a year from now.
Well, I think that you have to worry about what's in front of you right now. Make them both better. So make them both make improvements on both guys, and when they fight each other, it's going to be a great fight. They're going to make for an entertaining fight. I've had that situation before with a couple welterweights that I had back 10, 15 years ago. And I remember my wife asking me, what would I do? I said, you know what I would do is just get them to that point. Our job is to get them to that point and make sure that they're the best prepared fighters when they get to that point. And when that time happens, we make a decision. But to worry about it now is crazy. Just make them better, work them hard, improve what you think, what Eddie thinks needs to improve on both of them. And when they meet, Eddie will have to make a decision. I mean, simple as that.
Is that decision come down to money? Like, hey, who's giving me the bigger purse? Or like,
No,
what is that?
in Eddie's case, I don't think so. I
Yeah.
think in Eddie's case, he's very comfortable. So I don't think it's a money decision. I think it's whomever he gets along with best, whomever he feels as a coach. I'm saying that as a coach, that would be my choice this way. Whomever you think that you can direct better, whomever you think is going to listen better, whomever you're going to have a better time in the gym working the things that you want to work. As a coach, you love to see improvement. You love to see modifications that you make take form. You love to see all that. When you have a hard-headed guy that's not listening to you, then it's not so much fun working with those guys. So I think as a coach, you look at different things than money, and especially for Eddie. Eddie's not in a position where I think he needs a dime. So I think that it would come down to who he feels will be more of a good student.
Or maybe it could be, I would say
Or let me say this again. Now, also, who would fit best in your training camp with Canelo? Because Canelo's the star. When Golovkin was here, people that are brought in, people that I would train, had to be guys that were not going to conflict with the head guy. So it's got to be a guy that's not going to be an issue with Canelo, because Canelo's still the number one guy.
Yeah, I was
So
going to bring that up. I think he would probably talk with Saul and be like, hey, what do you think
who do
we
you
should
think?
do here?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it goes down too when guys like Canelo and like Golovkin, guys that work hard and they don't relax at anything. Everything is hard, hard, hard. They like to see guys that are working the same way. In fact, when Golovkin was here, I had a kid named Frankie Gomez,
I remember
who
Frankie.
yeah, who was a issue with a lot of different situations he was in, different coaches. And when he came here, Golovkin really never really coached anybody, never really said anything to anybody. He did his thing, watched other guys, and he took Frankie under his wing. And the reason he took Frankie he sparred with him, in fact, many times. The reason he took Frankie under his wing, because he saw the young man was working hard, was trying to make something of himself, was trying to be better. So I think that Saul will have a lot to say about that choice.
So going back to the Teofimo Barboza fight, one thing's very like apparent, like out of the two, who's the most talented? It's Teo. Teo's the most naturally talented between the two, but Teo, like it's so not weird with them, but like when Teo has a fight against a guy that doesn't have a big name, he's inconsistent. Like he's had inconsistent performances, but every time when it's come for him to step up against an opponent who has a good name, he's gone beyond expectations. I don't know if this is going to be the case this time. When you look at, Lomachenko When you look at Josh Taylor, both fights he was the underdog. Both fights everybody counted him out. Both fights saying like, hey, this, and that entail. He's gone beyond expectations. So it's certainly there. But I think with this fight, I don't know. You had mentioned you favor Barboza, but just going by talent alone, like, shouldn't you be favoring Teofimo?
I think Barbosa is the better boxer. I think Barbosa is has got better combinations. I think he's got better legs. I think he positions better. I think he sees more things than Teo does. Teo's a little more talented than like a pit bull kind of style for me anyway. So I just see Barbosa doing things that are going to confuse Teo, and just like Ambrosio dropped him in the first round, he's going to do things like that. They're going to surprise him and win a decision. It's going to be close. It's going to be a good fight. Advantage, kind of an advantage for Barboza that he's a right-hander he's facing. He's not a left-hander he's facing, so he's going to get plenty of great sparring. So I think that Barboza wins, like I said, a close decision.
Okay, so if I was a fan of Teo, and I'm just trying to play devil's advocate just for the sake of just arguing a little bit, to get a little bit more meat on this bone. If I was a fan of Teo, I would say, but Abel, Teo's the quicker fighter, faster hands, and more explosive fighter. Usually when you have a guy that has both of those against an opponent, 9 times out of 10 they win.
Okay, yeah, I could see you saying that, but Barboza hasn't shown us that he can be overwhelmed. Barboza hasn't shown us that he can be dropped. Barboza hasn't shown us that he can be handled. Maybe this is the fight where Barboza shows us that he is the ruler at 140.
Yeah, I believe this is for to unify the interim. It's funny, the interim title.
To unify it.
Yeah, to unify the two WO titles, because Teofimo has the WBO 140 title, and Barboza has the interim title.
The other thing is too, Barboza has had 5, I think, fights fall out on him for interim titles or for
He
belts.
waited a long
So
time.
is he got a chip on his shoulder? He knows this is do or die?
No, you can tell in his eyes. He's freaking hungry. Like,
So,
this guy it's like a combination of being hungry and like angry, because I think they tried to make the Teofimo fight when they were both at Top Rank, and it never happened.
Yeah, no. So is it that he has a chip on his shoulder and wants to prove something to somebody, like, you overlooked me and I'm going to show you? I think that's going to play a big role in this.
Out of those 3 fights, Abel, to you, what's the one that is the most interesting, the one that you think it's going to separate from the other 2?
Barboza and Teo.
Barboza and Teo? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the Rolly fight against Garcia is a dramatic fight with a one punch crazy knockout. Devin is going to have a tough fight, but win. But we're going to see that Devin doesn't belong where people are putting him as of yet. Doesn't mean that he's not going to. I think that the setback with Garcia kind of messed up a lot of feelings for him with the fans and with the boxing not the boxing public, but the boxing people. That maybe he just talks a good game, but he doesn't really have it all there.
All right. And today, while we're filming this, Canelo is going to have a press conference to announce his fight against William Skull. I'll be honest, Abel, I don't know anything about William Skull. All I know is he was the IBF mandatory. Canelo passed on that fight. They stripped him of the IBF. Skull goes into a fight, wins the IBF title, and now we're back again for another undisputed fight with Canelo and William Skull, May 3rd in Riyadh. Do you know anything about William?
Who is Skull with?
Good question. Let me see. Skull's a Cuban guy, but let me see who's his promoter and where he trains out of. But I haven't seen much of William, to be honest. William Skull, let's see here. He fighting out of Berlin, Germany. I wonder if he has one of the German promoters with him. Let me see. Well, he last fought in October. That's where he won the IBF title against Vladimir Shishkin. He got a 12-round unanimous decision. Before that, he fought a Sean Hemphill in an 8-round. He's only had two. No, I think he's only been 12 rounds two times. He's been 12 rounds. But
Well,
yeah,
you could have said the same thing about Calzaghe before he fought Lacey. We had never heard of him. Who is he? And we got Lacey, this big left hook guy that's knocking everybody silly. And what does Calzaghe do to him? So you don't know, man. You can't. I don't think that Canelo will have a hard time with him because I think Canelo is at his best right now. But who knows? We thought Jeff Lacey was at his best at 19-0, and Calzaghe was able to handle him easily. So I don't know that much about Skull,
yeah,
but
I don't
but
think
I think that
anybody really does, to
he's
be
a world
honest.
champion, and some of these guys, the belts are very important to them. And for Canelo, maybe that's the important thing right now.
Yeah, it looks like he had a good amount of fights in Germany. He's 5'11", so he's a little bit taller than Canelo. I'm trying to see his reach here, how it compares to Canelo Alvarez, but
Just at 168, right?
yeah, 168. I believe the promoter is Agon. I've never heard of this promoter, actually.
Mm.
But if I don't know, that's the other thing too. Like, if he's coming from the traditional Cuban school, Canelo did have problems with Lara. Though granted, that how many years ago was that? It was like more than 10 years ago, right?
Yeah. How many fights does Skull have?
Let's see here. It's in the 20s.
Okay, so he's got more fights than Morale.
William Skull. He's 23-0, 9 knockouts, so he's not a big puncher. But yeah, in those 23 fights, the quality of opponents that he's fought against, decent. He fought against the Vladimir Shinshishkin. Vladimir was 16-0. That was for the super middleweight title of the IBF. Before that, he fought a guy who was 16-1, Sean Hemphill. And then he had a few, I don't want to say gimme fights, but the records of these guys. He fought a guy that was 23-18 prior, 26-25. And then Evgeny Shevdenko, 15-0. Denib Diaz, 16-1. Dragan Lepay, 19-3. All these fights that I'm listing, majority of them in Germany. He started his career out in Argentina. And then I believe that's when he made the switch to the German promoter to have those fights.
So you said he's Cuban, right?
Yeah, Cuban.
Okay, so we look at Morale and we look at some of the Cubans with few fights. They're obviously very skilled. They come here and they win a lot of fights. He may not be a big puncher, but maybe he's a good boxer. Maybe he gives Canelo a hard time. I don't think so. I have to think that Canelo's at a point right now where very few people are going to give him a hard time.
Yeah, he's not a southpaw, but he is 5'11", and yeah, he does come from the Cuban school. I guess, I don't know. Maybe this will show us how much growth Canelo's had against that style. Since that Lara fight, he's done well against slick guys. Caleb Plant had slickness to him, did well. Billy Joe Saunders, another guy that had slickness to him, broke his eyeball. So he's had a good track record up to this point against guys that are perceived as very slick.
And that's on the 3rd?
Yeah, May 3rd in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I believe you guys might be on that card, right?
No.
No? I know you guys have a fight now, right?
Who's us guys?
With Hrgovic.
Yeah, no, he fights in London.
In London?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I saw a thing saying that Hrgovic is now in for someone. You still there, Abel? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll see what happens, because this fight is to build up this Canelo versus Crawford fight that's happening in September, where we don't know what's going on, Abel. We'll touch on it on a different episode of this with now Dana White making a league and everything. Crazy news with that, but we'll get into it in a different episode because that's a whole other hour of discussion I feel that we could have. But as always, Abel, hey, great chatting with you. We'll catch up with you more in the next few days to chat about that recent development. Appreciate the time, Abel.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, man. Have a great day.
You too.
Don't put that stuff in your hair.
What was that?
Don't put that stuff in your hair.
Yeah, no, this is just fiber, no grease, fiber.
I don't want you to get off the headphones and then go have to clean your legs.
Take it easy, you guys.
All right, man. Bye-bye.